What up, this is BENNGIIE. I'm back with another tutorial on Geist, and today we're going to be taking a look at Geist 1 and Geist 2 side by side so we can compare the differences. Now, I bought Geist because I wanted to have a FL workflow when making drawings when I'm using Ableton, and I found this plugin to be the best way at the time. I haven't found any other plugin that has been better without being attached to a hardware like Maschine or the MPC Studio. So if you guys know of any plugins, let me know so I can check them out. Now, I did have a Maschine and an MPC Studio, so I'm very familiar with the workflow with those machines, and I found that they offer a very quick way of making beats. But I didn't want to go outside of Ableton so much just to make a beat, and that's why I tried to find an alternative. And this has been the best plugin for that process. Of course, now I have Push 2 and I also have Push 1, and I use Push 2, but I also love using Geist because, well, there's no hardware attached to it. And I know you can still use the MPC and the Maschine without a hardware, but it's way more fun with them than it is without. So let's get into it. The first thing that is drastically noticeable is the GUI differences. The color is way more vibrant on the G2, and the vector scaling ability of the G2 is a welcome feature. The G1 looks real plain and boring and there's no scalability, but it's still a beast when it comes to making beats. There are certain aspects of each plugin that will vary your workflow in different ways, and I find that the G1 is more efficient in some ways that the G2 isn't, and vice versa. Now, one thing I like about the G1 is the volume knobs. It is easy to see and you can tell exactly where your volume is once you start moving it. Now with the G2, there's no way of really knowing exactly where the volume is by number, and it's kind of small to see. The only way to see it is to go to the mixer tab and you can get more info. And that takes a little bit of time off creating, but on the flip side, not being able to see the numbers could be a good thing to make you just feel where you want it to be instead of looking at where you think it should be. Another thing I like about the G1, you can see and adjust the overall volume meter right in the main GUI. Now with the G2, you do have a little slider at the top that you can adjust the main volume with, but you have to go to the global mixer tab to further analyze where you are exactly. And again, this could be a good or bad thing, but for the most part, we're not really touching the main volume anyway. Now on the G1, you can change the master pitch of a session within the main GUI. I like that because it can take your creativity in a different way real quick. Now with the G2, there's no master pitch option, but you can do it. All you have to do is pull up your editor and link all the pads. Then you can change the pitch all at once. But it only works for that engine, so if you want to use that feature on different engines, you will have to do it the same way for all of them, which is a little time consuming. On the layers tab in G1, you have pitch, fine tune, velocity to pitch, a pre-delay knob, and some other features that I haven't seen on the G2 yet. I'm pretty sure if it's in the G1, it's also in the G2, but I just haven't played with it enough to find it yet. Needless to say, it's somewhere, but it's hidden. Another thing I like is you can assign the outputs right in the layers tab instead of going to the mixer like in G2. And that's a huge time saver when you're using it with other DAWs. Of course, you see how the engines are laid out on each version, but I think I prefer the G2 version because it's pretty much out of the way, and everything you're going to be touching often is more in focus. This goes for the pads as well. I don't really touch the pads as much other than loading, auditioning sounds, and switching to chromatic mode, so being able to move it completely out of the picture is cool. You can't do that on the G1. And having more pads on the engine is also dope. You can pretty much do all your programming on one engine if you really wanted to. I like the layout of the transport bar in G1 better because you know exactly what it is and do versus the G2. You can load and save files without going to the main menu straight from the main interface in the G1. But then again, they made the G2 more about workflow than it is about the utilities. So that's the trade-off. And if I had to pick one, it would be more workflow. Where the pads are, you can see the modes attached to the pads on the G1 from the interface. Unlike the G2, where you have to go to the drop-down menus to find them. On the G1, they have a view mode where you can see either multi-track view or multi-graphic, aka automation lanes view. It's limited to 4 different inserts at a time, So to switch to the inserts, you have to go through the menus. With the G2, it's different. You can add as many automation lanes as you like. All you have to do is click the arrow by the name, and there's a little plus sign at the bottom. What's dope is they won't allow you to add a line you already added, so you can't get confused on if you added that line already. There's also a mode called single, where if you're just doing a quick automation, it's always at the bottom of the pattern editor, but you can hide it as well. There's a lot of little things inside each version that's dope, like the nudge feature. They both have it, but in different places. Also, some of the commands work the same. With the shortcuts, they are different, but only because the layout is different. Other than that, it all works the same. There are way more insert plugins in G2 and way more filter types as well. And I really like the sliders for the amp and free envelope on the G2. Some things I wish they would have kept though. I wish they would have kept the global pitch knob. I think that was a dope feature. Or maybe they do have it somewhere, I just haven't found it yet though. I'm still messing with the macro, so I haven't figured that out yet, but I'm working on it. I know I haven't went over some of the newer features in G2, so I'm gonna do another video strictly for that. But that's pretty much it for this video. As always, if you have any suggestions, please comment below. Please like and subscribe. Thanks for watching. Peace.